ladies and gentlemen of the interwebs. In today's intro video of something along the lines of there will be a mild amount of infighting and looking for explanations to answer this query by Mr. Comer in an interview with Catherine Herridge, I present to you journalism. Surprisingly, behold.
I'm sure you've seen a lot of the comments on X. This is a very popular chart on X. It says 0 arrests for some scandals that are very important to Republicans. Is that what accountability looks like?
Listen, that's the biggest complaint of every Republican on the House Oversight Committee is there haven't been enough arrests. Now, some of these, some of those issues, I don't know, it's going to be hard to arrest people. With the Biden auto pen scandal, what we produced in our investigation is evidence that the pardons and executive orders that were signed with the auto pen in the last year of the Biden administration should be declared null and void. Now, President Trump tweeted after we issued our report that he was going to declare them null and void, but I don't believe the paperwork's ever been done, and you're still going to have to go to court for that. But our congressional investigation will serve as basis to uphold the declaration of those pardons and executive orders being declared null and void. Someone from the Department of Justice just has to take it to court.
Okay, so someone from the Justice Department has not picked up the ball yet.
It appears that way.
Okay.
I mean, what's kind of funny, and it's not funny, look at James, Mr. Comer's fingers as he is forced to reveal what he acknowledges are going to be uncomfortable truths. Look at his I'm not one to talk, but look at his hand wringing or his hand nervous fidgeting.
Well, yet.
It appears that way.
Okay, well, that must be frustrating.
Very frustrating.
Now, it wouldn't be, there is the meme of the black hole that is Pam Bondi's desk. And there are rumors, I mean, for anybody who speaks with anybody on the inside, and I'm sort of like maybe one step removed, there are known issues of things being on the to-do list, and whether or not it's a Homer Simpson saying, I have a to-do list, or people saying, yeah, there's to-do, and then there's maybe to-do, and then there's the to-do, but not to not do. There is a known issue that's been going on for quite some time. The meme about Pam Bondi's desk, the inaction on certain issues, and there might be more than one reason for why that's happening. Comer is disappointed at the speed of things. I want to, just give everybody the steel manning here. Can I zoom in on this? So it's the meme. We've seen it on the internet. Russia collusion hoax. It says number of arrests. Russia collusion hoax, 0. People are saying, it's coming. It takes a long time to get it going. Merrick Garland only indicted Trump 2 years into his tenureship or whatever tenure as Attorney General. I'm like, yeah, he got to Steve Bannon real quick. He got to the Jan 6ers real quick. He got to Peter Navarro before Trump. Like, Trump was the culmination of the lawfare, not the one example of it took 2 years to get to Trump. That was the culmination of years of lawfare. And I'm not suggesting that this DOJ should engage in unjust, abusive lawfare. People are saying, just wait, Viva, it takes a long time, Rico, whatever, yeah, just keep holding your breath. Russia collusion hoax. January 6th is the one that really irks me. I'll take this out for 1 second, I'll bring it back. I was listening to Bourbon with Barnes. It was actually his Tuesday night Bourbon with Barnes while I was jogging. And he did say something that made me feel smart for having had the initial observation and for having taken flack from people on the interwebs who were saying, Viva, you're too negative, all you do is criticize. Harmeet Dillon came out and said, don't worry about the 5-year statute of limitations. Rico, don't worry about the 5-year statute of limitations, ongoing conspiracy. And my observation at the time, and I feel now confirmed in my assessment, is that that's an argument for why the statute of limitations should not apply or has been told or paused. It's an additional argument to the charges. You want to avoid having to argue why you didn't take certain action within the statutory time frame. You don't want to have to argue the exceptions to that. And so it's not, you will always have, he told the prescription, like when you're in the practice of law, as I was for 13 years, I did civil. And certain lawsuits need to be filed within a certain period of time. Copyright infringement has certain statutory delays. There's always the exception for, as we said in French, in Quebec, impossibilité d'agir, the impossibility to act. If you didn't know of the copyright infringement, if you didn't know of the defamation, if you didn't know that they had stolen money from you because they concealed it, you can have a suspension, and you'll have to argue that. They're going to say, I stole that money from you 10 years ago. You should have taken that action no more than 7 years ago, and you didn't, and too bad. And I'm like, how would I supposed to know you hid the fraud for those 7 years? I only discovered it now when I went back and saw that you false, whatever. It's an argument that you have to make. You don't want to make that as the starting point. You want to avoid that if you can. File in time. And so everyone's like, well, no, Viva, don't worry about the statute of limitations on January 6th because RICO, because conspiracy, ongoing crimes. All right, make that argument when it comes. But for the time being, what you're telling me is we have let certain periods of limitations lapse, and now we're going to have to argue the exception to get out of it. January 6th is the one that really irks me because the abuses that occurred, I say on January 6th in the following years, in that committee, that unselect committee of criminals, as far as I'm concerned. You don't delete records after your committee findings unless you're dirty criminals. Adam Kinzinger, Liz Cheney, I'm looking at you. The abuse was so bad that Trump had to come in and pardon the Jan 6ers to rectify and remedy the abusive process, the judicial abuses, the violation of rights, the violation of civil rights, the violation of Brady rights. It was so egregious, Trump had to come in and pardon 1,500 people. That's 1,500 people that were victims of some form of judicial abuse, and no one has been punished for it yet. Not only has no one been punished for it yet, we're going to get to it in a bit, some of them are still working there. Some of them got promotions. So that's a long way to say the one that pisses me off the most for the time being is January 6th. The Russia collusion, man, you're going to have to argue conspiracy to conceal because that's now a decade old. It's a decade old, people. Then we got Mar-a-Lago raid. I don't think you're going to get arrests for the Mar-a-Lago raid because I'm not convinced anyone did anything actually illegal in the Mar-a-Lago raid. It was just an abuse of what they were entitled to do. I'm not sure that anyone actually broke the law for that. Biden autopen is another one. I'm not sure you're going to get arrests out of that, but you might get declarations of invalidity of pardons that might and probably will necessarily need to be tested by the courts or at least ratified by the courts, but they haven't taken any action on that, apparently. 2020 election, I know a lot of people have some big issues with that. What do we got? Epstein. Don't get me started, people. COVID, you're going to get restitution for civil violations. No one's going to jail over that, except for maybe Fauci should. Albert Bourla should. Falsifying your trials, both civil and criminal. What do we got under that one? Benghazi, good luck. DOJ findings, I don't think anybody gets arrested for that, although I think they are now just referring criminal investigations into Tim Walz for his active knowing participation or turning a blind eye to the Minnesota fraud. So we might be getting something there. And then Ukraine impeachment hoax. You're not going to get any arrests on that either. It was a hoax. Impeachment is a political process, barring falsifying documents. I mean, I guess you could go after obstruction of, government proceedings to the extent it obstructed Trump from being president, not once but twice. So you might not get arrests on a lot of that list, but Comer is clearly expressing a bit of frustration. It's on somebody's desk. Nothing has happened. Now, I've been saying from the beginning, it's quite clear that the weakest links are, in my humble view, within the DOJ, Pam Bondi, and Todd Blanche. And unfortunately, those are the two highest uplinks, or relatively speaking, highest uplinks. Arguably, Susie Wiles is even higher, and then not arguably, Trump is the highest. And Trump could excise those weak links, replace those weak links. Many people were clamoring for that to happen. And now that I speak out loud, it's interesting that the initial pick, Matt Gaetz, has been receiving some fire, as some like to call it on the internet, which is interesting. I hadn't put that together, that Matt Gaetz was the original AG pick, had to back out because of controversy. Now, Andrew Bailey is now replacing deputy director. We'll see if he works his way up. But my humble opinion from the very get-go, and it wasn't the opinion I started off with, it's the opinion I worked into as facts emerged, and it wasn't motivated by the Epstein-Bindergate debacle. it was motivated by a bunch of other stuff, righteous and legitimate, is that Pam Bondi has been the weakest link. And Todd Blanche, weak or corrupt link, I don't yet know. But when you throw out that unsigned memo that causes unnecessary and immeasurable goodwill damage with your base, whether you did it on purpose through corruption or you just did it because you thought it would work and it was just tactically stupid, the outcome is the same. The only question is the intention. So there's problems, and I think Pam Bondi is that problem. You have an explanation that came out of the DOJ, and Catherine Herridge brought up the explanation, or at least the response. She's doing good work. Very diplomatic, and so maybe that gets, more answers, or at least gets the sit-down interview. Catherine Herridge says, update, Justice Department response to Chairman Comer's frustration over DOJ's alleged lack of action on criminal referrals. Attributable to a DOJ SPOX, that means spokesperson. Thought it was that show, the Stargate. What the heck is that show? The one, Spock, what's he from, for goodness sake? Can you believe this? I'm going to actually totally blank on the name of that show. Star Trek. Oh, jeez, Louise, I'm going senile. It's not Spock. It's short for spokesperson. We appreciate Chairman Comer's leadership and oversight. Unfortunately, longstanding Federal Rule 6E governing grand jury secrecy prohibits the department from discussing the existence or details of pending criminal investigations. That will always hold true, so we'll see. Can only wait for so long before you see action or inaction on that. This is not discretionary, and it is a principle we have explained repeatedly to the House. What would materially help the department carry out its mission is swift action by the Senate to confirm the president's nominees. More than a year into this administration, critical DOJ positions remain unfilled. We also urge Congress to address the growing problem of activist judges who are undermining the president's lawful agenda. The American people deserve a fully staffed Justice Department and a judiciary that respects the Constitution. Now, some might say this is a little bit frustrating of a response because what you have right now is just everybody pointing a finger in another direction. Comer says they're not doing it. We've put it on their desk. They say we can't do it. We're understaffed. We also can't talk about ongoing grand jury stuff, yada, yada, yada. The Senate's not confirming. There's judicial activists. Well, if and to the extent that the administration or anyone with an ear to it is listening, we, that is to say, Viva and Barnes, Law for the People, Sunday night law extravaganza in our locals community, Viva and Barnes, Law for the People, consistently in all forms of public broadcast have been complaining for a long time about the judicial activism, have been calling for people to get impeached over the judicial activism. Judge Boasberg, federal judges impeach them over their lawless judicial activism. Nothing's happened. The fact they're understaffed. Get your stuff together. Everybody's saying, just wait, give them more time. If they're understaffed and you're being told to just sit there and wait, nothing's going to get done. If they're understaffed a year in, that's borderline inexcusable. You push whatever paper and you whip whatever people, if that's what the whip does, and you get those, it's like Billy Madison. You get your ass out there and you find that freaking dog. So even that explanation doesn't make any sense. But what doesn't make sense, and I've been paying attention to it, and it's not to be nitpicky, it's to say you can't say on the one hand, we have smashing successes, which they do, on the general fighting of crime, and then simultaneously say, but we're understaffed, so we can't have the deep state arrest that you're clamoring for. Those two affirmations, maybe they're not totally mutually incompatible. Someone on Twitter sassily said, no, what they're doing is touting their successes despite being understaffed. That's not what Kash Patel, that's not what the DOJ is doing. There has been a radical reduction in crime, and it's something fantastic that this administration, A, should be boasting about, and B, would be able to boast about if there weren't so many other distractions that are unnecessary because of some bungled operations or bungled PR moves. There have been massive movements downward of violent crime, and it's amazing. Kash Patel says, this is in respect of a post, and that's, what's his face, White House. Pathological liar indeed, scum of the earth. FBI Director Kash Patel says lawmakers can lie, FBI results don't. Since January 2025, the FBI made 40 violent crime arrests in Rhode Island, 8% increase. Violent crimes against, what's the VCAC? I forget that now. Targeting the most dangerous offenders. Agencies 2 kilograms. They're talking about some of the successes of the FBI, which operates under the DOJ. And they've been also just talking about nationally double-digit reduction in crime. And it's the case. America, from what I understand, has record low homicide rates right now, certainly compared to the summer of love, which was also the summer of murder, death, and destruction, 2020. But you can't, on the one hand, say we have smashing successes at the DOJ and look at the reduction in crime nationally. We've busted fentanyl rings, we've busted drug dealers, human traffickers, we found 35, 40,000 children, which they have, and then say, but we can't have any deep state arrests and we can't move fast enough there because we're understaffed. If it's not mutually incompatible, it's at least mildly conflicting. And at least one excuse undermines the other success. One success undermines the other excuse. And by the way, I appreciate some people say double-digit reductions in the reports of crime. And some people say, there's a number of other reasons. And other people say, well, we don't trust the numbers anymore. We don't trust the stats anymore now than we did a year and a half ago. There's nothing really you can do to disprove that. It's just a question of faith in the system, which is also not at all-time highs. So that's the issue: is you can't suck and blow, you can't flip and flop. What's the other one there? You can't you can't say A and not A, which seems to be what the issue is in terms of explaining away some of the frustration about the attack on the deep state that has not yet been, or if it's occurring, that we have not yet seen, and you can't wait forever. And if the excuse is that you're understaffed, telling people to wait is not going to resolve the issue. There have been no impeachments of judges. There has been judicial activism frustrating Trump's policy, Trump's administration. You got to impeach those judges. And if you haven't heard that before, welcome to Viva Fry, daily live streams at 3 o'clock on Rumble, Sunday night, Viva and Barnes, Law for the People, across all platforms. VivaBarnesLaw.locals.com for the best above average community out there. How goes the battle, people?